Why do some women stay obsessively loyal while others constantly flirt with other men right in front of their partners? You see it everywhere. One woman treats her man like he's the only person in the room. Another woman makes eye contact with the waiter, laughs too hard at other men's jokes, and somehow always manages to mention her attractive male co-workers. But here's the twisted part. Both women claim to love their partners equally. Both say they're committed to their relationships. Yet one builds trust, while the other systematically destroys it through a pattern of behavior that seems designed to create maximum psychological torment. Most men believe female jealousy is about insecurity or attention-seeking. They think women who flirt with others are just being friendly or trying to make them jealous for fun. What they don't understand is that female jealousy operates according to ancient biological programming that's far more sophisticated and ruthless than anything they've been prepared to handle. Here's the brutal reality that will shatter everything you believed about female psychology. Women don't use jealousy randomly. They deploy it strategically as a weapon to control, manipulate, and psychologically dominate the men in their lives. And the most devastating part, most of them don't even realize they're doing it. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this dynamic when he wrote about the fundamental differences between male and female approaches to competition and control. Men compete directly through physical or professional confrontation. Women compete indirectly through psychological manipulation and emotional warfare. Female jealousy isn't an emotion. It's a tactical system designed to accomplish specific goals that serve women's evolutionary interests. Every flirtation, every mention of another man's attractiveness, every story about a male colleague's attention is a calculated move in a psychological chess game that most men don't even realize they're playing. Think about this honestly. When your girlfriend or wife mentions that a co-worker complimented her appearance, what's your immediate reaction? When she laughs a little too enthusiastically at another man's jokes, how does it make you feel? When she brings up an ex-boyfriend in casual conversation, what happens to your stress level? She knows exactly what happens. And that knowledge gives her power over your emotional state that she can deploy whenever it serves her purposes. Carl Jung wrote about the shadow self, the dark aspects of personality that people refuse to acknowledge. But female jealousy represents something even more dangerous. The shadow tactics that women use to maintain control while maintaining the illusion of innocence. The genius of female jealousy as a control mechanism is that it operates through plausible deniability. She's not trying to make you jealous. She's just being friendly. She's not flirting. She's just being polite. She's not testing your reactions. She's just sharing her day with you. This psychological cover allows her to wage emotional warfare while positioning herself as the victim. If you react negatively to her behavior, you become the jealous, controlling partner while she becomes the innocent woman who can't even talk to other people without being accused of wrongdoing. Here's where it gets truly psychologically devastating. Women deploy jealousy tactics in 3 distinct phases, each designed to accomplish different objectives in the relationship power structure. Understanding these phases is crucial because each one requires a different response strategy. Phase 1 is reconnaissance. She's gathering intelligence about your psychological vulnerabilities, testing your reactions to various levels of threat, and establishing baseline measurements for how much jealousy-inducing behavior you'll tolerate before responding. During this phase, the provocations are subtle and seemingly innocent. She mentions a male friend more frequently than necessary. She takes a little longer to respond to texts when she's out with female friends who might be around men. She shares stories about interactions with attractive men that include unnecessary details about their appearance or charm. Most men miss this phase entirely because the individual incidents seem too minor to address. But she's not looking for dramatic reactions. She's calibrating your sensitivity levels and mapping your emotional triggers for future use. Phase 2 is training. Now that she understands your psychological profile, she begins conditioning your responses through a sophisticated reward and punishment system. When you react with jealousy, she either escalates the behavior to punish you for being controlling or withdraws it temporarily to reward you for not making a scene. This intermittent reinforcement creates a psychological addiction where you become hypervigilant about potential threats, while simultaneously trying to appear confident and unaffected by her behavior. You start monitoring her interactions with other men while pretending you don't care, creating internal psychological stress that affects every aspect of your relationship. Phase 3 is deployment. She now has a complete psychological weapon system that she can activate whenever she needs to regain control, punish you for unrelated behavior, or simply remind you that your position in her life isn't as secure as you might think. The sophistication of the system becomes clear when you realize that the same woman who flirts aggressively when she wants to control you will become completely loyal when she's trying to secure commitment. The behavior isn't random, it's tactical. But here's the most disturbing truth about female jealousy tactics. They're not conscious strategies that women choose to employ. They're biological programs that activate automatically in response to specific relationship dynamics. Women who use jealousy as a weapon aren't evil masterminds. They're biological machines responding to evolutionary imperatives that operate below the level of conscious awareness. From an evolutionary perspective, female jealousy serves multiple survival functions that helped women navigate the complex social dynamics of prehistoric environments. The woman who could effectively manage multiple male relationships simultaneously had access to more resources, better protection, and superior genetic material for her offspring. Modern women inherit this programming even though contemporary environments no longer require these survival strategies. The result is women who unconsciously deploy tactics that made sense in tribal settings, but create relationship chaos in modern contexts. Understanding this biological foundation doesn't excuse the behavior, but it explains why logical arguments and emotional appeals rarely change it. You're not dealing with conscious choices. You're dealing with deeply embedded programming that responds to environmental triggers rather than rational discussion. Schopenhauer observed that women are directly fitted for acting as the nurses and teachers of childhood by the fact that they are themselves childish, frivolous, and short-sighted. This wasn't an insult. It was recognition that female psychology operates according to different principles than male psychology. Women don't think strategically about long-term relationship consequences the way men do. They respond to immediate emotional and social pressures using whatever tools are available in the moment. Jealousy tactics work in the short term to achieve immediate goals, so they get deployed regardless of long-term relationship damage. This creates a psychological trap for men who try to address jealousy-inducing behavior through rational conversation. You're using logic to combat biology, reason to fight instinct, and conscious communication to address unconscious programming. It's like trying to negotiate with gravity. If you're recognizing these patterns in your own relationships, if this analysis is revealing uncomfortable truths about female psychology that you've experienced but never understood, I encourage you to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Your engagement helps ensure that these conversations continue, that men start understanding the psychological forces that shape their relationships. The algorithms respond to your participation, and your support allows these insights to reach the men who need them most. The most insidious aspect of female jealousy tactics is how they transform men's natural protective instincts into weapons of psychological destruction. Your desire to secure and protect your relationship becomes the very mechanism through which she controls your behavior and emotional state. When she flirts with other men, your instinct is to increase your own value through better treatment, more attention, and greater investment in the relationship. But this response actually reinforces her behavior by proving that jealousy tactics are effective tools for extracting more resources and effort from you. The biological programming behind this dynamic is ruthlessly efficient. Women are designed to continuously evaluate their options and maintain access to the highest value men available. Jealousy tactics serve this purpose by keeping multiple men psychologically invested while preventing any single man from becoming too comfortable or complacent. From her perspective, a man who isn't occasionally worried about losing her is a man who might stop working to deserve her. The jealousy she generates through strategic interactions with other men serves as a motivation system that keeps you striving to maintain her interest and affection. This explains why women's jealousy-inducing behavior often intensifies when relationships become too stable or predictable. She's not consciously trying to create problems. Her biology is responding to the perceived threat of a man who stopped competing for her attention. The modern dating environment has weaponized these biological tendencies through social media and dating apps. Women now have constant access to male attention and validation, which activates their mate evaluation programming on a continuous basis. The average woman receives more male attention in a single day than prehistoric women encountered in months. This abundance of options doesn't make women happier. It makes them more likely to engage in behaviors that keep multiple men psychologically invested. Social media becomes a platform for displaying availability and desirability to a wide audience while maintaining plausible deniability about the intent behind these displays. The psychological warfare aspect of female jealousy becomes most apparent in how women use other men as emotional weapons against their partners. The male coworker, who's just a friend but somehow always available for lunch. The ex-boyfriend who's completely platonic but still texts regularly. The attractive neighbor who's just being friendly but always seems to need help with household projects. These men aren't random factors in her life. They're carefully maintained psychological assets that can be deployed whenever she needs to remind you that your position isn't secure. The threat they represent isn't necessarily sexual. It's replacement potential that keeps you psychologically off balance and emotionally invested. But here's where most men make their fatal error in responding to these tactics. They try to compete with the other men rather than addressing the woman's behavior directly. They attempt to become more attractive, more attentive, more accommodating, essentially rewarding her for using jealousy tactics by giving her exactly what those tactics were designed to extract. This response pattern creates a psychological addiction where she becomes dependent on jealousy, inducing behavior to maintain your investment in the relationship. The better you treat her in response to potential threats, the more likely she is to continue creating situations that generate those threats. The biological logic is simple. If flirting with other men results in better treatment from you, then flirting with other men becomes a valuable tool for relationship management. You've trained her to use jealousy tactics by rewarding them with increased attention and effort. Schopenhauer understood this dynamic when he wrote about the fundamental differences between how men and women approach psychological conflict. Men prefer direct confrontation that resolves issues definitively. Women prefer indirect manipulation that maintains ongoing leverage and control. Jealousy tactics serve this preference perfectly because they create continuous low-level conflict that never gets resolved definitively. You can't prove she's flirting because her behavior maintains plausible deniability. You can't address the threat directly because doing so makes you appear jealous and controlling. This psychological limbo is exactly where she wants you. Uncertain enough to stay invested but not angry enough to leave. It's a masterclass in emotional manipulation that keeps you psychologically bound to someone who's systematically undermining your peace of mind. The most psychologically destructive aspect of female jealousy tactics is how they corrupt your ability to trust your own perceptions. You start second-guessing your reactions, wondering if you're being paranoid, questioning whether behaviors that feel threatening are actually innocent interactions. This gaslighting effect is built into the system because jealousy tactics only work if they can be deployed without consequences. She needs to be able to create psychological discomfort while maintaining the position that you're overreacting to normal social behavior. Over time, this dynamic erodes your confidence in your own judgment and emotional responses. You become hesitant to address problems because you've been conditioned to believe that noticing threats makes you the problem. You start accepting behavior that violates your boundaries because you've lost faith in your ability to distinguish between reasonable concerns and irrational jealousy. The long-term psychological damage from this conditioning can last years beyond the relationship that created it. Men who've been subjected to systematic jealousy tactics often struggle to trust future partners, even when those partners haven't given them any reason for concern. But here's the crucial insight that transforms your understanding of these dynamics. Women's jealousy tactics are fundamentally tests of your psychological strength and self-respect. They're designed to determine whether you're the kind of man who will tolerate disrespectful behavior in exchange for relationship security, or the kind of man who maintains his standards regardless of the potential consequences. The woman who flirts with other men in front of you isn't trying to replace you. She's trying to determine whether you're worthy of her exclusive attention. If you pass the test by maintaining your boundaries and self-respect, she stops testing. If you fail the test by accepting disrespectful behavior, she escalates the testing because you've proven you can be controlled. This reframe transforms jealousy-inducing behavior from personal attack into professional evaluation. She's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to determine whether you're strong enough to handle the psychological challenges that come with a long-term relationship with a desirable woman. From this perspective, the appropriate response to jealousy tactics isn't increased investment or competitive behavior. It's calm enforcement of your boundaries and standards. You don't need to fight other men for her attention because men who deserve exclusive attention don't have to fight for it. The psychological principle at work here is that people respect what they cannot control and dismiss what they can control completely. When you react to her jealousy tactics with increased effort and attention, you prove that you can be controlled through these methods. When you respond with indifference to her behavior while maintaining your own standards, you prove that these tactics don't work on you. This indifference isn't coldness or lack of caring. It's psychological sovereignty that comes from understanding your own worth independent of anyone else's behavior. You don't need her to stop flirting with other men to feel secure because your security comes from within rather than from external validation. The transformation required to achieve this psychological independence is brutal but necessary. You must kill the part of yourself that needs exclusive attention from women to feel worthy. You must develop such strong internal validation that external threats become irrelevant to your emotional state. This doesn't mean accepting disrespectful behavior. It means responding to disrespectful behavior from a position of strength rather than neediness. You address problems because they violate your standards, not because they threaten your security. You maintain boundaries because you respect yourself, not because you fear losing someone else. The woman who realizes that jealousy tactics don't work on you faces a choice: escalate to more dramatic behavior that reveals her manipulation clearly, or abandon these tactics in favor of earning your attention through positive behavior. Either outcome serves your interests better than the psychological warfare that destroys most men's peace of mind. This decision point reveals the true nature of female psychology in relationships. When subtle manipulation fails, women must choose between abandoning the strategy or escalating to more obvious forms of control. The escalation path often includes more blatant flirtation, deliberate boundary violations, or even threats of infidelity designed to provoke the jealous reaction that subtle tactics couldn't generate. But escalation comes with risks that most women prefer to avoid. Obvious manipulation destroys plausible deniability and exposes the calculated nature of her behavior. It forces her to own the fact that she's deliberately trying to make you jealous rather than maintaining the fiction, that you're just being paranoid or controlling. The smart woman recognizes when she's dealing with a man who can't be controlled through jealousy tactics and shifts to earning his attention through genuine value and positive behavior. She stops wasting energy on psychological games and starts investing that energy in being someone worth choosing over all other options. This transition marks the beginning of authentic relationship dynamics, where both parties compete to deserve each other rather than manipulating each other for advantage. The woman who abandons jealousy tactics in favor of earning attraction through merit creates the foundation for genuine trust and mutual respect. However, most women don't reach this realization quickly or easily. The biological programming that drives jealousy tactics is powerful and persistent. Women who have successfully used these strategies in previous relationships often struggle to abandon methods that have historically generated the results they wanted. This creates a testing period where she may cycle through different approaches to see if any of them crack your psychological armor. One week she might try the subtle mention of male attention at work. The next week she might escalate to more obvious flirtation at social events. The following week, she might retreat to victim behavior, designed to make you feel guilty for not responding to her previous provocations. The key during this testing period is maintaining complete consistency in your responses. Every reaction you have teaches her something about your psychological makeup and boundary system.